Oh geez, this is gonna be a controversial one, isn't it? Hello there everyone, today I want to talk about whether or not 2024 makes sense as the release year for the next Nintendo console. I'll be referring to it as the Nintendo Switch 2 throughout this video. It's kind of funny, I've learned over the past 6 months or so, I've actually kind of carved a hole for myself here on YouTube as the person that believes the Switch 2 is coming out in 2025. People actually know me as that. I've seen people reference me on message boards or other places saying, isn't that the guy that believes the Switch 2 is coming out way further off than a lot of other people think, which is just really interesting because I've never viewed it as, oh, I think the Switch 2 is coming out way further than anybody else. I've always viewed it as, oh, I think the Switch 2 is coming out a few months later than most other people. And let me preface this entire video by saying that I do think it's possible the Nintendo Switch 2 releases next holiday. And when I say next holiday, I mean September to November. I do think that's possible. However, based on the past 2 Directs, based on Nintendo's messaging and how they've been talking about their future plans, I don't see any reason to believe it's coming sooner than late 2024, but really, I do think it'll be early 2025. So today, I kind of wanted to finally make a video just explaining my thought process, explaining why I've kind of landed on that 2025 timeframe. And when I say 2025, once again, clarification, I mean March 2025. I do not mean a single month later than that. I mean March 2025, exactly 8 years after the original Switch came out. So let's go ahead and talk about this. Of course, leave your thoughts down in the comments below. I know this is going to be a very controversial topic, so let me know why you think I'm wrong down in the comments below. I would, of course, love to get a discussion going. And of course, thank you for all the support on my video the other day talking about the negativity in the Nintendo community. I was very surprised by the reaction to that video and just how much what I said actually resonated with a lot of people. So I really do appreciate the support on that. So the first thing I want to do is talk about how much is still coming for the Nintendo Switch and why I think the current lineup and what's announced actually indicates a further off release for the Switch 2 than a lot of people think. Because I mean, I'm still seeing people in my comments saying the Switch 2 will come out in March 2024, May 2024. I don't think there's a chance that happens. Like I said, late 2024 is the earliest, but I do believe 2025. One of the biggest reasons for that is just how much content is still coming to Switch, how much first-party software, even third-party software, which we don't really need to get into, how much first-party software, though, is still planned for the Switch. Even just how much has released in 2023, I think, is a sign that Nintendo still hasn't really slowed down that much. People want you to believe that Nintendo has completely stopped developing for the Switch and they're only doing remakes and ports and, you know, we're not getting any support for the Switch. We just got a brand new 3D Zelda game. We just got Pikmin 4, which is one of the most requested Nintendo games ever since the Wii U era. We're getting a new 2D Mario game, which should be one of the Switch's best-selling games when all is said and done. And in 2024, we already have some pretty major stuff announced, with most notably being Princess Peach's Showtime, and, of course, hopefully, Metroid Prime 4. Now, I know what you're already typing. I know you're typing, well, most of the games announced are remakes and ports, and they're low effort. I'm not going to sit here and try to sell you on why Thousand Year Door isn't low effort, or why Mario vs. DK isn't low effort, or why Another Code Recollection is actually really cool. I'm not going to try to do that. What I am going to try to do, however, is make you realize that this has been the Switch's motto pretty much its entire life. And, you know, I have people trying to say, well, actually, there's more ports and remakes this year, 2023, than last year, or in 2018 or 2019. That's actually not the case. I actually went through, I made a little tier maker and sorted every port by each year. 2023, and especially 2022, has had either less ports than most years of the Switch or about the same amount of ports as the Nintendo Switch. 2018 and 2020 especially are notoriously bad in terms of having a lot of ports of old games, if you're counting everything Nintendo published. So while yes, 2024 currently has a lot of ports and a lot of remakes announced, that's not really indicative of anything to me because that's how the Switch has been every single year. It's actually interesting because right now, for 2025, we have more games announced for that year than we did last year for 2023, which is interesting because typically Nintendo announces games very, very close to release. And I will say, it's a little suspect the way they're treating Luigi's Mansion 2 HD, and they're just kind of having it stay as a general 2024 release, when certainly that's a pretty low-effort port, and they could probably put a release date on it already if they wanted to. Maybe there's something to that in, the marketing and the messaging of maybe they're doing that because they want people to, really think, oh, the Switch 1 has a lot of life into it into the second half of next year. Same with Thousand Year Door. But to me, I look at this most recent September Direct and the lineup for 2024 so far announced, and I think, wow, based on other September directs and based on what we normally know going into the next year, we already know a lot about 2024, and there's probably still a lot to come. Like I said, Nintendo announces games very, very close to when they are released, and I don't think that's going to change. I think there will be plenty of games announced for 2024 for the Switch one in the February direct and in the June direct for next year. And yes, there might be more ports and remakes than new games than other years by the time it's all said and done. I'm not a prophet, I don't have a crystal ball. But just off the top of my head, we are definitely, without a doubt, getting a new Pokemon game next year, and that'll be something new. There are very strong rumors suggesting that Fire Emblem 4 is coming back with a remake. And there are rumors for F-Zero GX as well as a new 2D Donkey Kong game, all for the Switch one. And that's just what we know about. That's just the stuff that, like, is pretty likely. So if you take the lineup for next year, which is Another Code Recollection, that's 1 game, Mario vs. DK, 2 games, Princess Peach's Showtime, 3 games, Luigi's Mansion, Paper Mario 1000 Year Door, that's 5 games. If you want to say Metroid Prime 4, that's 6 games. On top of the fact that we are almost certainly getting Fire Emblem, 7 games, a pair of new Pokemon games, I'll just count that as 1, 8 games. That right there is already a game almost every month. And that's just the stuff that is very easy to predict. If F-Zero GX is real, that's another one. If there is a new Warriors game, which, based on the timing and patterns of how Nintendo and Koei Tecmo have collaborated in the past, there will probably be a new Warriors game, that's 9. If there is a new Tomodachi Life, which is one of the weirdest, biggest holdouts of the 3DS generation not on Switch right now, that's 10. There is so much potential still for new software for the Nintendo Switch one, both in terms of remakes, but also new games. I mean, that 2D Donkey Kong game, I personally haven't ever fed much into that rumor. In fact, I could totally see that being Princess Peach's Showtime because it is kind of like a 2D game in a weird way. But my point is, people saw this most recent direct, they saw a lot of Mario, they saw a lot of ports and remakes, and they jump to that and think, well, that means 2024 is a barren wasteland. And this happens every year with Nintendo, even not talking about Switch 2 or Switch Pro. Every year around this time, people start panicking, saying there's nothing coming out next year. I remember in 2021, this was very apparent when the majority of that year's lineup was announced in the E3 Direct. People were panicking before that June Direct. And the same thing happened this year, actually, with 2023, with Mario Wonder, Mario RPG, WarioWare, Detective Pikachu Returns, all being announced in June. People always panic because it seems like I don't know if they have short-term memory loss or what. I'm not trying to be mean, but Nintendo announces games, back to my point, Nintendo announces games so close to release. There is still so much coming for the Switch 1 next year, and honestly, even if the Switch 2 comes out in November of next year, or March of 2025, I bet you the Nintendo Switch, the console we all have right now, will probably get first-party software until 2027. And I am very curious, just from an analytical and a, content creator viewpoint, I am very curious to see how the software sells next year, even this holiday with Mario Wonder and Mario RPG. Because while in 2022, the Switch was in its 6th full year on the market, it was breaking records left and right with Splatoon 3, and then Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, and then into its 7th year with Tears of the Kingdom, and I would assume Super Mario Wonder may not sell, record-breaking numbers, but it will sell very akin to those games as well. And if that keeps up even remotely with Princess Peach's Showtime, or Luigi's Mansion 2 HD and Paper Mario the 1000 Year Door, if those games even sell remotely as well as, let's say, if 1000 Year Door sells comparably to Origami King, or if Princess Peach's Showtime sells comparably to something like, I don't know, like Tropical Freeze sold like 5 million on Switch. I think that's a fair kind of comparison point. If these games keep selling that well on Switch, and it's will be its 8th year almost at that point, I think it's safe to say that even if they get steadily less and less high effort, Nintendo will keep supporting this console for several years. We're going to get several more Kirby ports. We're going to get, Color Splash. We're going to get Xenoblade X. We're going to get all of these ports and a couple, smaller new games. I think something like Metroid Samus Returns even could come to Switch. And that's just software. People really like to harp on the fact that Switch sales, hardware sales, are down year over year. And that is true. Nintendo Switch sales, hardware-wise, have been declining pretty substantially, actually. But I feel like what a lot of people aren't fully understanding is that the Switch is still selling really well. It's not selling much worse than the PS5 right now, which is outpacing PS4 sales. And the PS4 is one of Sony's best-selling consoles right behind the PS2. Even in the US, which is Xbox's main market, the Switch is still selling better than the Series X and S combined most months. So yes, sales are down, but that's because they were so astronomically high because of, drumroll please, COVID. And COVID is actually the thing that made me start thinking like this a couple years back in like 2021, and especially in 2022, when Switch Sports was announced, and I think it was Furukawa, don't quote me on that, said that the Switch was about halfway through its life cycle. COVID extended this console generation so much because Nintendo expected dips. They expected dips in 2020 and 2021, and then that just didn't happen because Animal Crossing and COVID were like this magical mishmash of perfect timing and opportunity for a company to strike and capitalize and make a lot of money. And then it kind of just kept selling really well, and software sales keep being, insane for their major games. And I just feel like it hasn't slowed down to the point yet where Nintendo really feels pressure to release a new console. And I hear this comment all the time of like, well, yeah, but they're not going to wait until it completely dies like the Wii U did to release a new hardware. You're 100% right. Of course they're not. But people are acting like the Switch is dead in the ground right now, not being sold. Guys, the Switch is still selling very well compared to its competition, just not compared to how well it was doing 3 years ago because, like I said, COVID. Something else that is definitely worth talking about is the fact that the Nintendo Switch is different. People keep comparing its life cycle to the Wii and how the Wii was, 7 years, 6 years, and the GameCube, which was a couple years, and, they keep comparing the life cycle of the Switch to other Nintendo home consoles or even Nintendo handhelds and saying that it's weird that the Switch has gone on so long. And yes, once again, that goes with the COVID argument, but also, this is the first Nintendo console that they combined all of their resources. This is both their handheld and their home console. So I just want to say, I don't think it's fair to compare the Switch to other consoles, even like PlayStation or Xbox consoles. You can't compare it to a regular generation because it is a different type of device. It is a completely different business structure for Nintendo. So at least to me anyway, it makes sense that they would want to tread a little bit more lightly moving into their next device. When the Wii U came out, yeah, it sucked, I'm sure, for them that it failed, but they still had the 3DS to fall back on. I mean, this goes back to the DS being the third pillar during that generation with GameCube and GBA. Obviously, it was a replacement for the GBA, but they didn't want to say that because, just in case the DS was a failure, they could fall back. If they release a new console, and for whatever reason, I don't think this will happen, but if for whatever reason it fails, they won't have something to fall back on. So them treading lightly and kind of holding back a little bit until they release the next console really doesn't surprise me. Another thing that I think is worth talking about is how well March 2017 worked for Nintendo. Releasing a console in the first half of the year, that was kind of new. That was something we don't really see very often except for maybe revisions. But in terms of main home console Nintendo systems or even handhelds, that's kind of unheard of, right? Releasing in March is very weird. And, I believe Nintendo had a plan to release it in 2016, but they had held off to make sure that software was ready for the console. So while maybe they didn't initially want to release it in 2017, like I said, they kind of just held it off for software, it worked so well for them. And frankly, listen, I'm not an analyst, but I feel like it just makes a lot of sense for multiple reasons, especially with Switch 2. First of all, every time a new console comes out, be it Nintendo, PlayStation, or Xbox, there's always stock issues. Without a doubt, there's always stock issues unless you're the Wii U. By releasing in March, no matter what, you are going to sell out because of your hardcore audience. Us Nintendo dweebs are going to be there to buy it no matter what. And then you have the summer months and the early fall months to build up that library, get those must-buy titles on the console so that when the holidays come around, not only are you getting the leftovers of the Nintendo fandom that hadn't been able to get their hands on the console yet because of scarcity, you also get the kids that see the commercial for Splatoon 4 or Luigi's Mansion 4 or whatever new games they make for this console, the 3D Mario, and then you'll also sell out that holiday season. I feel like the release timing and strategy of the Switch in 2017 was just so genius, even if it wasn't necessarily intentional to begin with. Having that influx of sales when it comes out because of the Nintendo dweebs right at tax season, then the summer months to fill out the catalog, and then holiday to bam, hit it with another round of stock and sales. I feel like that just makes so much sense. Also in 2024, we are most likely getting a PS5 Pro, which Nintendo might not care about that much, but if Sony keeps up with their patterns, that will likely come out in November. It probably doesn't hurt to avoid that. Something else I want to talk about is the fact that Nintendo itself, the company, the heads of Nintendo, Furukawa, Miyamoto, any of these people that are high up at Nintendo, they haven't even hinted at it. And I bring this up more so for the people that think it might come out in the first half of next year, because since they haven't hinted at it, I think that pretty much completely rules out any chance of it releasing before September of next year. Like, I don't think there's a single chance of that happening, because Nintendo will, in some form or fashion, mention something. They have said, like, okay, your Nintendo account's going to carry over to future hardware. I mean, they said that years ago. But they haven't said anything about, like, a code name or even really hinted that something new is coming soon. People are just assuming that because, once again, what I was talking about a minute ago, based on other console life cycles, people are just assuming, oh, it makes sense that it's time for the next console. And this goes with my final point that I want to bring up today in this video. We would have way more concrete leaks if it was releasing in the first half of next year, and frankly, even if it were releasing in the second half of next year, which, like I said, I think is possible, I feel like we would have heard more by now. We did hear very recently that it was shown at Gamescom. I'm a little reluctant to believe that. Not just, I know people are going to be like, oh, you don't want to believe that just because you want to be right about it being 2025. No, I don't care about being right. I question a lot of those sources. VGC, I don't trust. They've been very wrong about things in the past. They have been right about things in the past, but they have been wrong as well. I trust Jez Corden from Windows Central, but there's something about them showing the Matrix Unreal Engine 5 demo and Breath of the Wild at 60 FPS that I don't fully know if I believe it. I think maybe I'm just jaded on hardware rumors a little bit, though, because of the Switch Pro, which, once again, a lot of these same insiders and journalists that are reporting that it was shown at Gamescom, they were all in on the Switch Pro back in 2020 and 2021, saying that the Switch Pro would have exclusive games, or it would, you know, release that holiday, it would launch alongside Metroid Dread, and all these things, and as we all know, that was complete and total BS. I don't know if people expect this thing to just be announced one day with no build-up, but we are absolutely going to have some sort of inclination that Nintendo is getting ready from Nintendo itself before they reveal it. Maybe not necessarily a code name, but there will be comments that start suggesting it is happening soon. Or I don't know how to explain it correctly, but it's not just going to pop up with, like, the Switch reveal trailer back in October 2016. We're not just going to get that with no build-up. There will be something that happens beforehand, some sort of way more concrete leak about what it is, or something from Nintendo itself. I just don't see a scenario where it just manifests itself magically out of nowhere. And once again, both of those points, this is mostly referring to it releasing in the first half of next year. You know, we're still 7 months away from a potential reveal if it releases in the second half of next year, you know. If it releases in November, I would assume it'd be revealed in, like, March. It could be revealed in January, but I would assume March to May, in that time frame it'd be revealed, but we'll see. So yeah, I just wanted to hop on here and make this video because I apparently have branded myself as the person who believes the Switch 2 is further out than everyone else. You know, every YouTuber, every person, every journalist, they're all saying Switch 2 is coming out in 2024, and I guess I am really the odd one out here, so I thought it'd be fun to hop on here and really formally kind of explain my stance on the entire situation, because I don't think I've done that in a proper dedicated video. So, of course, drop down in the comments below. Let me know why you think I'm wrong. I know there's going to be a lot of that, so very excited to hear why I'm stupid. And if there's anything I didn't mention in this video, if you bring it up in the comments, I will try my best to reply, but if it gets anywhere near as many comments as the last video, which has like 800 comments, I will not be able to reply to every comment, so I'll try my best. Of course, thank you all so much for watching. Subscribe here for more based Nintendo content, and follow me on Twitter at BotoxGames. Until next time, folks, peace.